Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Church with Jesse Lee Peterson. I am filling in for Jesse today. My name is Doug Massey. I do the websites. I do the Bond websites, all of them. Fallen State, Jesse Lee Peterson, and Rebuilding the Man. So that's one of the things I do here. I'll kind of go over my life, how I met Jesse. I met Jesse about 25 years ago now. I lived in Michigan, and a mutual friend introduced us, and I forgave my mom, and my life changed at that point. I started a chapter of Bond in Flint and had Jesse there. We had a meeting with my family, and that didn't, it went well as expected, but they sure didn't like it. We had radio interviews, we went to jails, we did a lot of stuff there, so it was kind of pretty interesting. Eventually I moved, this is my home, I was born here. I moved home, and I've been here for 20 years now. I've been back here for about 20 years. In that time, as I said, I forgave my mom, my life changed. Forgiving my mom was interesting in that my life did change. I was able to kind of deal with things a little better. I was still messed up, but I was at least able to kind of see enough to not take on everything so seriously. But one of the things that helped me the most is forgiving myself, because I hated myself for some of the things I had done, and I didn't think even God would forgive me for some of that. So hating myself was, once I realized that God already forgave me, and I didn't know that beforehand. Once I realized that God forgave me, it was like a huge burden gone, and for me that kind of just set me free. Not saying that I didn't have, I wasn't perfect or anything, I'm not saying that. I kind of wanted to talk about one of the things that, once Jesse asked me to do this meeting, all the thoughts and everything that went through my mind, just taking this whole week, right? I literally went through probably every thought you could think of. No one's going to show up. My mind just went crazy, and now I can't remember hardly any of them, but no one's going to show up. All these different thoughts to kind of push me away from doing this, but yet here I sit, right? I don't generally do this type of thing. This is not my cup of tea. I do have to do this at my job, and it took me a while to do it, but once my boss kept pushing it on me, I just naturally started doing it. Yeah, that's it. I wanted to kind of ask, what's it like for you guys to go through knowing you have to do something? What's it like for you guys to go through all these thoughts and then still do it? Or, sometimes in life there's those things where I wouldn't do just because I couldn't get past thoughts. So for me, let me just go back a little bit before I ask that question. For me, it was like, Jesse asked me to do it. Hey, you want to do something? No, what am I going to talk about? That's exactly the first thing. What am I going to talk about? Because usually you guys, most of the time you guys see me, I'm over there quiet, just kind of watching how things go, right? My duty is a little different than just being here. My job is to kind of pay attention to things. So when you see me, usually I'm over there in the corner quiet. So all those thoughts that go through my mind after he told me that, I first said no, and then almost immediately I texted him back and said, yeah, I'll do it. because I couldn't live with myself saying no, right? It's just kind of weird. It's not that it's hard to do this, really. Maybe coming up with material might be every week, but I don't have to do it every week, thank goodness. But all the little thoughts after that, even this morning, maybe this morning is the worst. I don't get nervous until that moment, that few minutes before. So this morning, it's like you get into those thoughts and you're like, you just kind of tense up. So I went through, again, literally any thought you could think of to get me to not do this. And so I kind of want to know, what's it like for you to go through, to know you have to do something, and what's it like for you to go through those thoughts, and if you go ahead and do it, or do you chicken out? So let's see, I'm going to ask. She's looking at me. She was looking at me.
Good morning.
Good morning. When you know you have to do something,
yeah.
When you know you have to be in front of a crowd, or that thing that, people might look at you a little weird, people in the chat are judging the world out of you. The people that won't do it are the biggest judges, right? And that stuff's going through your mind. What are people going to think? All this, these are the thoughts that I thought, right? What are people going to think? I don't really have much to say. I'm not much of a talker, that's for sure. So all this stuff goes through your mind, but yet you still do it. Or maybe you don't do it. So what are some of the things that go through your mind when you know you have to do something? And do you do it, or do you opt out?
I do it. Yeah. It's been interesting watching my thoughts through this whole journey this year, because I think before, my ego was very involved in doing it. Not even, how do I even say it? I can just see now that, because I'm able to watch my thoughts, I can acknowledge that they're my thoughts and walk through it. But I've found in my life generally that a lot of growth usually happens when I just walk through it. I for whatever reason, I'll still experience that fear, that angst, because of the thoughts, and you think about what other people are going to think about you, but I don't know. I don't know if I enjoy walking through fire, or it's always helped me a lot by doing that. So, and I can see now in hindsight, a lot of it is before the fact that gets you tripped up. So you'll spend a lot of time before the fact going through how this is going to be, what are people going to think. But once you cross that threshold, you end up landing in a place that isn't anything that what you were thinking about before, which, again, in hindsight, I can see that it's just the enemy trying to derail you, And I don't know, I don't know if it means that going through it is always like the thing to do. I think that's what I'm looking at now. Like, do I need to do this? Do I have to do this? And really, if I'm just present, it's just like, well, this is just the next thing to do, I don't want to say I like those opportunities, but I kind of do in hindsight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I've always found that when I go through it, it always ends up being better in the end,
One thing I learned about myself, because I train people, firearm safety. So people are interesting. And one thing I learned about myself through training them is that when we don't know how to do something, or we're not sure of something, our mind tells us all about it. Our mind is making this, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to look like that, and none of it is true at all. And so I agree with what you said. When I go through, if I decide to go through it, I always learn so much, even if it's just about myself, right? But usually you're learning from people. You're learning about yourself through them anyway. So I have to agree with that.